I'm very happy to welcome all of you back, especially to welcome this time Kevin and Amy, Kevin Hawkins, Amy Burke from Mindful Education to our weekly session. This time we have it in English, so it's a kind of new experience for all of us too. But I'm very happy that both of you are here. I think we met 2017 in Austria during the summit from AVE first time. And yeah, I'm very happy that you accepted our invitation to do this session today. Yeah, I think you are one of the quite few pioneers who bring mindfulness and social emotional learning to the schools. And one of the books I recommend all the time, if people are asking me, can you recommend something about mindfulness in schools? I always recommend your book in English or in German, Mindful Teacher, Mindful Schools, because I think this book kind of sums up the whole field. So precise and so wonderful, so I always recommend this. And I love it reading myself. So yeah, I'm very happy that you're here. And maybe you can say just a few words about yourself, how you found your way into mindfulness and what you are doing now. And yeah, I'm very happy that you're here. And please, Kevin and Amy, yeah, the session is yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be with you this evening. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. And thank you to Tobias and to the Institute for making this space available. It's so important to connect with community, and even more so now during these difficult times. So we really feel grateful to be here. It's a real privilege to spend this time with you. So thank you very much. As Tobias said, the session is in English, and if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and Tobias will take a look at them, and we can hopefully help to answer them at some point. And also to know that we will at one point go into breakout rooms, and of course there you can speak whatever you want, so that will make sense to you. And also wanted to just say that we are talking to you from Spain, where we now live, and things have been difficult here, like so many other parts in the world, but also have been starting to, the restrictions are easing a little bit. But before we get into all that, just wanted to say that, so I'm originally from Canada, and I'm a high school teacher. That's who I am, and I came into mindfulness. My father actually introduced it to me when I was younger, in my early 20s, and I found that interesting, but it didn't really keep my attention very well. And it wasn't until later in my life, when I was using mindfulness for myself, that I noticed how it impacted my teaching. And I was really curious about that, and then did more formal studies on how to bring contemplative education to young people. And left the high school 8 years ago now, because we're doing this work with Mindwell. And so it's always such a privilege to be able to work with teachers and students when we have the opportunity to do so. That's me.
And then, yeah, well, I'm from England originally, and started off professionally as a social worker, and then became a teacher in my 30s, and worked in schools in England, and then in Tanzania, and in the Czech Republic, as a school leader and middle school principal. And mindfulness I kind of got into when I was a young man in India in the 1970s, and then really kind of dabbled with it, I guess, in different ways, but got into it much more seriously in my early 50s, when I was really going through a difficult time, and found it really beneficial in my personal life, and it began to impact the way that I was working as well. And started to then offer it to kids in my school, and then to teachers and to parents, and it kind of grew from that to what we're doing now.
So just for those of you who don't know us, and it's a shame we can't meet with every single one of you, but we can already feel the community that's being built here this evening, so thank you for that. Mm-hmm. For our session tonight, our primary theme is, what are we learning from this time of disruption? Mm-hmm. And that's sort of what is going to guide us this evening. What are we learning from this?
But before we get right into that, let's let's just help ourselves and each other arrive together in this virtual space that we're creating, and just do a very short grounding arrival practice. So just invite you to take 3 conscious breaths. And then just let the attention drop down into the feet. See if you can connect with your feet in this moment. How are they feeling from the inside? And just seeing if you can lightly move your attention now up to the seat, to the connection with the chair and the buttocks, that part of the body, just between the chair and your body. And then coming up through the body and seeing now if you can focus your attention into the hands. How do the hands feel, whatever position they're in right now? So any sensations that you're noticing now in the feet or the seat or the hands. Perhaps noticing the breath coming and going. Just letting go of whatever's been going on in your day to now as best you can, and just becoming familiar again with the sense of the body sitting here, breathing. And if your eyes were closed, just gently opening them. Just maybe a little bit of a movement or stretch. I was watching Mark Williams talking at the Oxford Mindfulness Centre last week about the roots of anxiety in this time, and about uncertainty and unfamiliarity. When things are so new, it's a challenge to us. Apart from the real physical fears as well, there's also that disturbance and disruption from everything changing or not knowing what's going to happen next. And mindfulness can be, as you all know, very beneficial in a time like this. And I think helping ourselves and other people create more familiarity with the physical body is a way of finding a kind of grounding and anchoring during a time of disruption that we can come back to when we need it. And we know you've talked already previously in other sessions about this state of uncertainty that we're all going through. And initially, the uncertainty was perhaps about the virus and what's going to happen and being locked down. And now perhaps some people it's more, okay, what's going to happen next? The uncertainty, especially for educators, I think, parents, about school, where this is going, how long will it go on for? I know in Germany, different regions are doing different things, and some schools are back, some schools are partially back. A lot of uncertainty around that as well. We know this has been both a challenge for us professionally and personally as educators. And coping with the shift to online learning and then going back to school, and perhaps having to cope with both online and physical learning in some situations now. It's a lot. There's a lot of reasons to notice our stress in all of that. And so that whole shift has been huge, and a lot of hard work has been done by yourselves and by other teachers and parents all around the world. So, you know, it's new territory for everyone, and we just want to see how can teachers help students also as we're going through a period of transition again now towards returning to schools.
And that when you mentioned like how can teachers help, I know you've already had sessions, I think, on self-care in particular, and of course that would be our number one recommendation, of course. But tonight, when we're looking at how this kind of disruption, you know, what can we learn from it? One of the things, aside from how important self-care is what we've been noticing in schools is the importance really now of relationships and of the social and emotional aspects of learning have really come center stage now during this time. And in fact, in the USA, the Harvard School of Education did a study of educational media. They were in the first few weeks of COVID and the move to online learning. They were looking at what are the most common themes in the educational media right now. And right up there, number one was this, again, the importance of the social and emotional aspects of learning, which are really important. And now, as Kevin was saying, as some schools are heading back or trying to find a way to transition back to the classroom or to the blended or online learning, these aspects, of course, are becoming central to solid and profound learning, and really sort of acknowledging what's been happening. So what happens is schools, they want to get back to, in some sense, some normalcy, right? Of wanting to get back to where we were, because that's comfortable and that's what we know. But in that hurry to get to that, we want to make sure that we're not forgetting what is most central and important right now, which is these, as we say, these social and emotional aspects of learning. And this approach is being highlighted actually in many schools, and even there's some in the Netherlands that we were reading about that in their planning for the transition back, they made clear that what they want in that is time for adapting. This is for teachers and students and parents as well as the school community. So adapting, making time for adapting, making time for connecting and sharing of experience of the past few months and what it feels like to go back to school, and embedding well-being. And so that it's not just a one-time conversation of, how was your past few months, but really looking to solidify these ideas in education. And it might seem easier in some ways in a primary school to be able to do that, whereas in secondary schools, perhaps, students are needing to be taking exams and stuff. But again, any strong learning can only happen when students feel safe. And really now we're talking about the emotional safety in particular. So emotional and mental health are key aspects to teaching and to learning. So finding ways to connect and share about experiences, and sort of on a human level, right? That the teachers and students were all in this experience together, and how can we come together as a community to move through it and not just sort of push it aside as we race to get to the academics.
Yeah. And as Amy's saying, of course, many schools these days are recognizing the importance of relationship. It's how humans learn. We know that from social neuroscience and from humanistic psychology, evolutionary psychology. So let's just see, I would say also perhaps from our experience of working recently with school leaders, international schools are certainly looking at this moment of disruption as an opportunity. How, we want to reshape education anyway. How can we use this as a door, open that door a little bit wider? And many people around the world seem to be thinking that way. There's a conference going on at the moment called Education Disrupted, Education Reimagined. So, our intention is to see, can we get our schools and our teachers and parents to really start refocusing on what's really important in learning? And is this crisis showing us a little bit about what is really important in life and learning? So let's just take a moment to connect ourselves with our own feelings of our deeper values of what schooling and education is all about. And to do this, we do this with parent groups around the world. Some of you may have done this short activity with us. It's not a mindfulness activity. I'm just going to ask you really for a moment to bring to mind a child. It could be a child of your own. It could be, if you don't have any children of your own, it could be a child that you work with. It could be a relative. But just to have in your mind's eye a clear image of an individual child, and just let yourself bring that image alive, connecting with the reality of that being a child somewhere at this moment that you know. And I want to see what comes up for you when I ask you this question. Thinking of this child now, what is it that you really want for this child? What do you really want for this child? And you may have lots of ideas coming up, but just seeing if you can allow one word or phrase to just surface to the top. And I'm asking you again the same question. What is it that you really, really want for this child? So just hanging on to that word or phrase for a minute. And if you could, maybe just drop it into the chat. If you could just write a word or phrase into the chat, that would be wonderful. And we can share those shared ideas of what's important for us. So thank you. So having trust in the future. Yeah, very important at this time. Having good health, to be happy and safe. Safety comes up many times. Of course, to be loved, and again, happiness. So, and feel free to add to that, but I will keep looking at it. But just to say that these deeper values that you're coming up with, we get the same wherever we go in the world. It doesn't matter what part of the world we're in, the culture. It doesn't matter the economic wealth of the parents. It's a universal, isn't it? Deep down, we all want these things, to have a good moral compass, to find love and connection, to be given a place of welcome and to be taken seriously. Beautiful ideas, and that really point to these deeper values for us. And our question for schools, and especially for schools these days, is, how can we get the daily experience of our schools and of our children in these schools to come closer to these deeper values that we really believe are important for a growing young person, especially in the 21st century? How can we help foster and nurture a school environment that develops those skills and capacities and values? And one way we see of this happening is by putting a very clear focus on well-being. The understanding that the physical health, the mental health, the social and emotional health of our young people is increasingly of importance and valued. And we want our schools to see learning through this lens of well-being, where we really understand that this is a central driver of schools. Academic achievement is important, will continue to be important, but this is perhaps more important. It deserves to have a place equally alongside academic achievement as being a key driver of our school systems. And if we look around the world, we see that this is happening in some ways in other places. The OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, put out a beautiful framework for the 2030 educational framework, working with nations around the world to try and reorganize learning in schools so that it prioritizes the fulfillment of individuals and the understanding of learning to take care of ourselves, to take care of other people, and to take care of the planet, which is obviously such a key priority at the moment. And again, if you look even on the government level, there are examples. Apart from Bhutan, since Bhutan, there's New Zealand and Iceland and other countries are now beginning to say, you know what, our central role as a government is not increasing the GDP, the economy of the country. It's actually the well-being of all of our citizens. How can we best promote that? So it's time, isn't it, that society and education begin to seriously prioritize this key area. And of course, changing education systems is not easy. We know how stubbornly difficult it is to change our education systems. But we can see this opportunity to begin to put more emphasis on social and emotional aspects of learning, and to bring in areas like mindfulness that help us to really understand how we function, how the mind works, how the body works, how the feelings work. And we can also see, if we look at the area, for example, of how deep change is happening in organizations, in businesses, through things like systems theory and the science of change. We know that Otto Scharmer, for example, who's at MIT in the USA, is working with thousands of people now around the world to help collaboratively change organizational thinking in a very deep way, to really connect people. And actually they're using mindful awareness in this process now, finding ways to work with mindfulness with groups to help build that group awareness of what it is that's really needed in this moment of change and of disruption, what is needed right now. So they use moments of stillness and reflection to get groups to really tune into that and to notice, what am I feeling right now that I need to let go of? What's not so important? And what is it that's actually beginning to appear that's really important, that I want to prioritize? What is it that's emerging at this time? And this applies totally to change in education. We can use stillness and reflection, these moments to help us to ground ourselves, but also to become more awake and to become more aware. And it really is about cultivating awareness, in essence. This is what we really are most interested in. Cultivating awareness of ourselves, yes, but also of the environment that becomes increasingly important to the work that we're doing and to the work of schools.
So we'll explore some of these themes in our practice. And actually our practice this evening is going to begin with some movement. So the invitation right now is to stand up. You might need to take your earphones out. It will only be standing for 2 minutes, not long at all, but finding a little bit of space. You can move your camera, whatever you need to do, but just taking a moment to stand up. And so right away, just getting a sense of the body standing. So if you just bend your knees slightly, that will help you to plant your feet more firmly on the ground. And even leaning forward or leaning backwards. And don't just do it automatically. To the best of your ability, bring that attention right down into the feet, noticing that the toes, when you lean forward, grip into the ground. They release as you lean back, maybe even leaning side to side and noticing the pressure in the foot as you lean one way or the other, noticing how that pressure changes as you move back and forth. And then coming to center and stillness for a moment. Maintaining that slight bend in the knees and just giving the body a little shake and maybe even a little bit of a rub or wiping down. So wiping down the arms, even the ends of the fingers, the shoulders, the bottom of the neck. It's really wiping that off. Lower back, buttocks, and even the legs, the backs and tops of the legs. Just give a good wipe. Feet, and the head a bit, and then let it all shake off. Great. And then finally, we'll just do a little bit of tapping and begin on the head. And notice as you're tapping different sensations on different parts of the head. Stinging or feels kind of hot maybe. And the sound makes a sound, of course, too, on different parts of the head. And then down to the forehead and face, just tapping all around. Perhaps even a rub of the jaw. And then we can tap more fully on the chest. And then down the inside of one arm, and up the outside. Maybe once more. And then come across on the inside. Give a good tap, up the outside, inside. Outside. Okay, down the chest into the stomach. Careful if you've just eaten. And the hips, you can go hard on the hips a bit. And all the way down one leg. And up. And the other leg. Down. And up. Last shake, last tap. And then coming to. Coming to a moment of stillness and just noticing what's happening. Allowing the feet to be grounded, the knees to be slightly bent. And just paying attention to the information your body is giving you. Any tingling, energy moving. Warmth. Noticing the heartbeat. And the breath as it moves in and out of the body. And maintaining this connection as best you can coming to find your seat, and I'll continue the practice once we're seated. So as you come to get back into your seated position, maybe your earphones coming back in, and just noticing, okay, maybe if all that movement has lost some connection with the body, let's come back to the body. So finding that posture that allows you to be relaxed and alert. Closing the eyes if that's comfortable, or just letting the gaze soften. And coming back to the sensations in the body. What's there? Are there any echoes of the practice from movement? Are there any echoes of that still in the body? Maybe noticing some pulsing or aliveness in the body. Tuning into any sensations of aliveness in the legs, in the feet and the legs. Sensing the legs from the inside. Aware also of the body sitting on the chair, supported by the chair. Noticing any sensations of aliveness in the arms and hands. Any sensations of aliveness in the torso, so the belly and the chest area. Noticing the heart beating. And even bringing awareness to the head and face area. Perhaps noticing any light coming in through the eyelids if their eyes are closed. Perhaps aware of the whole body breathing right now, just sitting here, breathing. And as we sit here, breathing, I'm just going to offer a couple of questions and just see what comes up on the inside when I ask these questions. So the first question is, during this time, what are you being called to let go of? What are you being called to let go of? Not searching too hard for an answer, but just seeing if anything arises. Maybe it's words or perhaps images. And the second question is, what are you learning during this difficult time that you want to hang on to? What are you learning that is important to you, for your family or for yourself personally or for your students? What is it that you're learning that you want to hang on to? Again, just allowing words or images to arise. Allowing those reflections to be with you as you sit here, breathing in your body with this community. And as a way of coming to the end of the practice, and just allowing yourself one or two deeper intentional breaths. The eyes were closed, allowing them to open. And we just want to hang on a little bit to that the feeling of the reflection as we move into breakouts now. And in the breakouts, the invitation is just to share a little bit, if that's comfortable for you, about what came up for you. And again, you know that with the sharing, you're of course allowed to pass and just you can be a listener. But what is it that you're being called to let go of? Or maybe even more, what is it that you're learning from this time of disruption that you want to hang on to? Maybe just sharing that in your breakouts. There'll be breakouts probably around 3 people or so, just depends on numbers. Yeah. And it will be for about 12 minutes. Mm-hmm. We have that. And Tobias will put us into breakouts now, I think.
And he's going to broadcast maybe the message, those questions in German, and so make sure that you've got that. And you can be talking on a personal level about just your own personal experience. You can also be thinking in terms of your school environment and education. What would you like to hang on to instead of going back to everything as normal? How would you like things to be going forward from here if we could create more space in our schools?
And then after the breakouts, we'll be able to come together as a whole group again.
So the questions are, what are you being called to let go of? If it roughly translates as, was lädt dich dazu ein, von dir losgelassen zu werden? And the second question was, what are you learning during this difficult time that you want to hang on to? Was lernst du in dieser schwierigen Zeit, was du gerne weiterführen möchtest? So, I will just start the breakout sessions now. And we see us in about 12 minutes.
Mhm.
Welcome back, everybody. I always find the Zoom breakouts like teleporting, like you go somewhere and you come back and you have no control over it. So thank you for that and for sharing with each other. And now, just for our last few minutes together, we'd like to be able just to open it up to the whole community and just ask if anybody would like to share verbally with us about, what is it that they're learning that they want to take with them. Feeling free also to write it in the chat function, but also if anybody wants to respond in person, that would be lovely. Feeling free to do it in English or in German, and it can be translated too. So what is it that you are wanting to hang on to? What are you learning that you want to keep with you?
And you should be able to unmute yourself now. So anyone wants to share something?
Okay, I like to keep with me the feeling just to let situations and things be as they are and not to be frustrated because I can't plan anything.
Thank you.
Just to keep being relaxed.
Thank you.
I would have never imagined that teachers could work from at home, so that we can just see all the options and the positive aspects.
Many possibilities. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Someone wrote in the chat, being grateful for all the beautiful things in life. So gratefulness.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like now I have more space to notice things to be grateful for during these days. So yeah, it resonates. Thank you.
And someone wrote to keep the silent moments in the daily life, just to keep having them in the future.
Nice.
Yeah, for me, it's very important to appreciate all these human connections that I have and to savor every single moment that I'm hopefully going to have with those. All the friends and relatives, my kids, etc., that I cannot see right now. So I'm looking forward.
Yeah. And that physical connection as well that we
absolutely. I mean, the physical connection is the worst, Yeah. I think like a stranger when I'm going out, it's so weird. Yeah. People avoid me, I avoid people. I mean, you have to get used to this. Yeah. I think I never can.
And I've heard teachers talking about exactly the same thing, but the students really missing that physical presence. So it's just the importance of being together, even though we can connect, and it's been wonderful. We're learning new ways of connecting, which we didn't, as I ever said, we didn't know we could work in this way. So there's definitely potential, but also the importance of actually being in a room together from time to time. Thank you.
I experienced being connected in a new way. That if I'm not careful outside, it might have consequences in other people getting sick, or if I wanted to meet someone, I needed to become active. And I was more active in trying to find out in relationships that didn't go so well. I was more active to meet with the people and solve problems. And I also understand more, like, whatever we did here, how it affects people in other countries, on other continents. That was more obvious, and I learned more about cultures and people and poverty and leadership, how the different countries were leading. And I mean, I got a broader perspective on things.
And that interconnectedness as well. Yeah. Thank you. Lisa?
I would like to maintain curiosity, even in the face of danger or potential danger or feelings that are difficult for me, like fear, things that, yeah, and then maintaining this, even it's just a tiny little bit curiosity and staying open, even in difficult situations and difficult feelings, overwhelming situations.
Yeah, finding the courage to be curious even when there's fear around is such a powerful thing.
Yeah, and it's not easy, and fear has like the narrow quality, and curiosity has a more spacious quality. So playing with that, Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I actually managed to do a regular meditation practice now, and I love that. It's showing some results, and I really, really hope I can stay with that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of mindfulness is about slowing down, isn't it? And as a society, we all always say we all move too fast, we're all too busy. But here we had a real chance for some of us, not all of us, of course, but to actually slow down a little bit, and we're forced to in a way. And so that we can see how powerful that can be in our lives. That do we want to be moving quite so fast again in the same way? Can we just have a little bit less and move a little bit more slowly?
Yes, and also not moving so far. It's been always these little neighborhood trails, and yeah, I know it very well now, but there's a different Robin or something every day, or it's, that's also lovely.
Yeah, the importance of nature when you can get that connection too,
And just our local community, local area, how rich it can be.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Anybody else for final comments or questions or thoughts on anything that we've talked about tonight? Yes, Suzanne.
Yeah, I changed so many patterns of sleeping and waking up. I found my own regular biorhythm that I was looking for so many years, and I did not have any chance to find it, and now I found it. I found out when I get tired and I want to wake up on my own without any technical help. And instead of having more weight, because I am very sick and very ill, I lost weight. Staying at home, I found new patterns of cooking, of eating, of interval fasting, and I moved my table in my working room, and I moved it that I can look outside the window. Here is my window, and I look into my garden and I see birds. I bought a little bird house where I feed them, and I can look at them all the time when I'm sitting here. And so I changed my patterns at all. And most of all, I made in January and February an MBSR course, and I integrated my daily meditation. And this helps me altogether to change totally my pattern. And never, never, never I will give them up. And I am thankful, at least for Corona. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm thankful.
Yeah, thank you. And we were talking about contact with nature, and there's the birds, but there's, we are natural beings too. And so there's that connection with our own nature and our own biorhythms, as you say, and feeling a bit more natural in a busy, fast-moving world. It's, in the midst of this, dealing with your own illness and dealing with the situation and finding that is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
So much, and everybody for sharing. And what I'm learning, just to finish off, I feel like I've been learning like so many things from this time, and one that's really stood out for me has been again, it's this importance of relationships. And so one, it's the relationship with myself, how deeply important that is, and it's not easy. That's not an easy thing to do. And then how that being connected more with myself allows me to be more connected with other people as well. So that's something that I've been learning a lot from this time.
Yeah, and I think I'd echo what Amy's saying and other people too. I mean, I am learning that through online community, that there is connections that can be made and trainings that can be done that actually are very meaningful, not the same as being in the same room, but nevertheless, some meaning to them that I've really appreciated, which I hadn't expected in that way. But missing that real human contact as well. We're lucky that there's two of us here as well. So some people have spent, we're talking to a friend in Brazil today, 95 days now on her own in her apartment. You know, it's very long for some people. But nature is so important for me, and it's really come home to me here. And I think just wanting to not do the same, to prioritize things that really matter for me, that are really important: relationships, connection, family, and work. But also to try and be more considerate. We always think of it, but to be really to take action so that my actions are not causing harm to the planet or other people in any way, to really try and reduce that as much as possible. I think we see there are possibilities that, you know, we've been forced into something, and climate change is a huge issue, but there are ways to if we pull together and if we're strong about it and clear, and if we prioritize well-being over economic growth, then I think there are ways to adjust the way that we live and work and the way that we teach and learn. So.
And I think it's communities like this one that really help this kind of change to happen. So thank you so much again to the Institute for having us be a part of this wonderful organization that is making real change, doing this kind of work that we are talking about.
This kind of connection is so important. So yeah, thank you. Can we just take 3 conscious breaths together before we hand it back to say goodbye to Tobias? So let's just enjoy these last few moments in this small community that we are in right now, and just take 3 breaths together. Schön. Dankeschön.
Dankeschön.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tobias.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin and Amy, for this short hour insight and practice and connection. It's a pleasure having this session, and thank you for coming and doing this little experiment with us. Like always, thank you to everyone. It was a pleasure having you here. I hope I meet most of you or many of you next week again. Next week we will have, and I will say this in German, nächste Woche wird die Susanne Krämer von der Universität Leipzig bei uns sein, die was zu dem Thema Embodiment, Englisch again, die was zum Thema Embodiment machen wird, und da freue ich mich auch sehr drauf. Ja, wenn ihr, wie immer, wenn ihr Freunde habt, Kolleginnen und Kollegen, für die das interessant sein könnte, ladet sie gerne dazu ein. Wir freuen uns immer über neue Gesichter. So thank you everyone, especially you, Kevin and Amy. Enjoy your time, be fine, stay healthy, and see you next week.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Much. Nice to meet you all, and goodbye to the people.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.